Song Talk Radio with Michael, Neil, Phil, and the gang.
Oh, it's my turn, right?
Yes, sir.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, episode 291. This is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting.
Wow.
And we share tips and tools and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs, ideally. I am your host, Michael Proudfoot, and with me are the clean living members of the Song Talk Radio Action Team. We have Fortified Phil.
I am here, and I'm very excited to be here, as I am each and every time.
Thank you for that. And Nutritious Neil.
Well, thank you very much. I'm feeling nutritious.
Why is he
I guess.
nutritious?
Why are you fortified?
And and multivitamin Micah on the board.
Hey, thank you.
During the show, send your comments, questions to @SongTalkRadio on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or feedback @songtalk.ca, and we'll share them with the audience in real time. And please visit us at songtalk.ca to see how you can be a guest on the show. Our guest tonight is the 2019 recipient of the Hamilton Arts Award for Emerging Artist in Music, right? A singer-songwriter quickly gaining recognition for her dramatic musical arrangements and imaginative lyrics, Ms. Alex Whorms. Growing up, Whorms immersed herself in classical and theatrical works of Chopin, Beethoven, and Sondheim throughout her childhood. And then after moving to Hamilton from Ajax, Alex began to write her own music, combining her classical roots with influences from genre-defying pop artists like Sarah Slean, Regina Spektor, and Sarah Bareilles. Since the 2017 release of her debut EP, Our Lives, Whorms has adopted Hamilton's blue-collar work ethic. Way to go, girl. Having performed over 100 concerts in Canada, New York City, both as a soloist and with her band. And career highlights include performances at Hamilton's 2018 Festival of Friends and Canadian Music Week this year, 2019. Welcome to Song Talk, Alex.
Thank you so much.
That's very
nice.
fun. Are you going to play some music for us, or are you just going to use this as a way to demonstrate your fantastic songwriting?
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
It'll come up in the conversation. Yeah, because Alex has nicely brought in a piano. For those of you on the radio that can't see,
A whole,
That's right.
a whole
that's
grand
right.
piano.
the whole grand piano.
Grand piano.
All 88 keys, I counted them.
It's a very
I
tight
carried it
studio.
on the
And
subway.
the black keys as well as the white keys.
The black keys as well as the white keys. Yeah. So how long has it been then you've been writing songs?
Oh, I think I started writing probably when I was about 12 or 13. You know, I
Okay.
started quite young, but I didn't show anybody. I kind of kept it to myself for most of my life. And then just more recently, I started trying out performing my own stuff. I'd been performing other people's material for quite a while by then. And it went well, so I kept doing it.
What was the push to switch from other people's stuff to yours?
Oh, good question. I think I always wanted to, but I was just shy. I was
Did
nervous.
someone respond to your stuff and go, you should play that, or did you just,
Oh, yeah. So I think, I got generally good reviews, I guess. I went to McMaster University and
for music?
for music cognition, actually.
What is music
Cognition.
cognition?
Music cognition, that's a whole other discussion. But I was at open mics at McMaster, and once in a while I would try an original. And one day a friend of mine introduced me. He said, I think you would really love this recording studio in Hamilton. And I was, I believe, in my second year of school. And he connected me with Amy King, who is a recording engineer, producer there. And I showed her some of my songs. We had a meeting, and she was the one who said, I really think you should record this. And I thought, well, I guess I can trust her opinion. And then I made my first EP, and then since then I've just kind of fallen into doing this full time. And here I am. Here I sit.
And the first EP was recorded when? Just a couple of years ago, right?
2017, yeah,
Right,
not
so-
long ago. Came out in that spring, and now just last Friday my second one is out, and
Called Burgundy?
it's called Burgundy. So that is everywhere in case anyone wants to check it out, all streaming services and blah, blah, blah. And I think there will probably be more in the near future too. So, yeah.
How many songs are on Burgundy?
Five.
It's really short. It's like 15 minutes.
It's pretty short.
Yeah.
It's pretty short. It actually took quite a while to make because, my first EP was kind of like a little bit like an experiment because I had this vote of confidence from a producer for the first time. And I said, okay, what do I need to do? Let's do this. And I used that EP kind of, that was like a lot of people, perform for a while and form a band and then make an EP. But for me, I kind of flipped that. I made an EP and then I formed a band and then I started touring. And then it worked out pretty well for me because it was a really, I think I had an easier time getting gigs than a lot of people do when they're first starting out because I had a really nice recording to show for myself. And I got some funding from Factor shortly after putting out that second EP. So I said, well, I guess I'm making another one. Like it wasn't... it wasn't necessarily, it probably would have taken longer if I was just kind of sitting around trying to make the choice myself. Do I want to do more or do I not? Because, it's a lot of work and there are all these questions about whether you'll survive or whether people will like it and whatnot. But Factor said, yes, here's some money, go do that. So I did it. But what I found happening was, I followed kind of like the same procedure as I did with the first EP. At first, I had, we did a rhythm section one day at Grant Avenue Studio, and we did, I had plans to do string overdubs I really love and all sorts of backup vocals and stuff. And then there was a flood at the studio, which delayed some of my sessions. And then a couple months after that flood, there was a fire at the studio. It was really rough. So these disasters, pushed back recording sessions quite a while. I think we did my string quartet and my vocal sessions probably 6 or 7 months later than had initially been planned. And then because of that delay, I had plans to go to a separate mixing engineer this time. As you pointed out earlier, there's quite a contrast from my first to my second EP in the production. And that was intentional, but the producer I had initially planned to work with was no longer, was really booked up by the time we actually got everything done. So I had to go somewhere else, and I ended up working with Mark Lalama in Fenwick, way out in the middle of nowhere, on vocal production and mixing and all that. And the thing was, like, we were kind of at a year by that point from when I had started recording it, and I was evolving. Like my singing was changing. My career trajectory had kind of taken off. We had started playing some bigger festivals with the band. And I went and I did a 2-month training program with Canada's Music Incubator in Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was getting all this training and becoming a better performer and just having a little bit more knowledge about songwriting and the music business and all of that stuff. So I would come back to these songs and have new ideas about how to make them better or how to change them. And because of that, I think the EP has come out a lot better than it would have turned out, if none of these things had happened
if you
to
were able
stall
to finish
it,
it when you wanted to.
Exactly. So I'm really thankful that it took a year and a half for 15 minutes. On that last session, I looked at Mark, the producer, and you're putting in all the ISRC codes and into the embedding program, and you see the runtime is like just over 15 minutes, and I'm going, wow, Mark, like a year and a half, all of that work for 15 minutes of music.
So
pretty good minutes.
what things did you sort of realize at the end of the process, like from a songwriting standpoint?
Well,
where did you start and where did you end up in terms of a songwriter?
In terms of song, so one of the things I learned was where to chop things out, how to be more concise. if you listen to, I think the track from my very first EP that was like the lead single and the favorite is a song called Jones, and it's over 5 minutes long because there's this really infectious like guitar riff that I just wanted to go on and on and on. And I really like a lot of like late 90s, early 2000s female singer-songwriters, and at the time, you know, their songs are about 5 minutes. That's what the style was back then, and they're some of my biggest influences. So naturally, at the time, doing something like that felt normal to me. But through my program and all the stuff I was doing, I kind of realized I probably don't need that double verse at the beginning of this song. So, you know, I was rewriting lyrics to shorten verses that, you know, when it was taking too long to get to the chorus in some songs, or actually that was a really common thing. I think that's happened several times where I used to write double verses at the beginning all the time. And then, you know, I'd be like, okay, where's the chorus already?
Don't bore us,
Now,
guys.
is that because, by the way, because of the way people listen to songs now?
Yeah. And yes, so part of it is that, right? Is thinking
Does
about.
any of this have to do with, like, after your first EP, you started working with a band? Is in the band situation, do things get trimmed up, like, as you guys are rehearsing, and, like, do they have any influence on that sort of thing? Or do you go by your lonesome and then bring the songs to the band and say, this is it?
I would say mostly the latter,
Okay.
but I definitely do, like, sometimes they'll point out something, you know, that could be made better, and, like, you know, I'll take advice once in a while. So it usually I'll be like, here's a demo, here's what I want, and then we do it.
Right.
But as far as my reasoning for behind, like, you know, the double verse thing, you know, not only do I think, like, of course, you know, you want to write songs and you want to be yourself and you don't want to sacrifice your style for anything really, but you also, you know, want to make it as marketable as possible. And I found too that after we cut out sections, I actually like the songs better too, because it kind of removed some of the extra fluff that wasn't necessarily making the message of the songs any stronger either. So I don't know, that was kind of the last two sessions for this EP. So it was going to be a Friday and a Monday, and then we were going to be done. And on the Friday, we're, you know, listening to final mixes and whatnot, and I looked at Mark and I said, Mark, I'm going to rewrite this song and this other song over the weekend. I'm going to come back to you on Monday. We're going to re-record the vocals. We're going to chop this out, and then we're going to be done. And then we were done. So I was rewriting right until the very end with this. So although a lot of the song ideas are kind of old, they're songs I thought of, you know, years ago even. It's kind of up to the minute in regards to my skill as a songwriter.
But
Really.
there's so many new versions of the songs, aren't they?
Is there like a length that you're kind of shooting for?
Length? Depends on the song. So, for example, well, people tend to say 4 minutes is kind of the max right now, right?
Okay.
And I don't think people, like, I'm definitely not saying that it's no good to write songs that are longer than that. But, you know, at the stage I'm at right now where it's, you know, emerging artists trying to get some attention, hopefully, you know, hoping to get radio play. If you're, you know, over 4 minutes, from what I know, basically it's like, oh, sure, we can give you 2.5 minutes, but can we give you 5? No, like that's, you know, a very long amount of time to be risking on a new artist.
I see.
So for me, like, I kind of looked at it and went, okay, what can I live with for, you know, reducing these songs? And, you know, what can I take out that I'm not going to miss later? And it was a tough thing for me to do. First single, we had an extended version and a radio length version. And because I thought it was going to break my heart to not have the long intro and the long outro. But I don't miss it anymore. And
Was that on your latest album?
Yeah. So
which song is that?
That's Sunset. It's called Sunset, and it still has a bit of it still has like the outro that I wanted, and it just used to be 3 times as long. So if you listen to which, you know, we still kept it. If you know, if a film scoops it up for something, that could be really useful, right? For them to, from an instrumental kind of movie scene type of standpoint. So like there's a use for that. But,
and you've got an instrumental track on the album as well.
Yes, yeah,
The
I
last track
do.
is
I
instrumental.
do. That's Birds. The last one is instrumental. I love my instrument, classically trained. So it's kind of in my nature to just, I'm gesturing my hands here in a kind of like a cloud-like fashion. I love going on and on and on with the instrumental bits. I like doodling on the piano. I love scoring strings, so I can kind of go to town with that for forever.
Right.
Love that stuff.
I'd like to ask you about your songwriting process, but I
Sure.
think we should listen to one of the songs
Sure.
off your new album, Burgundy. Which track would this be? Micah, what do we have?
Too Many Love Songs first? Or
Sure.
Too Many
We
Love
can
Songs.
do
Let's
that
play
first.
that.
All right. Too many love songs. Should I give a short little intro? Or?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if there's anything we should be
Yeah.
listening for, any this used to have strings here, but now it doesn't,
Yeah.
or
Well, this
We
is
used to have two verses.
Yeah.
guitar solo all the
Exactly.
way through.
Yeah, so Too Many Love Songs is this is one of the tracks that on the Friday I said, Mark, I'm going to rewrite and we're going to fix it on Monday. And I went away over the weekend, took out that first double verse because the chorus, I was so proud of how it was sounding. It was kicking, and I just did not want to risk anyone clicking skip before they heard it. So, and it's a song about, actually, we made a really cool music video for it too. So I'd love for people to check that out.
Yeah, the video's great. I saw it.
Thank
Ah,
you.
Well, we'll
Thank
link
you.
to it on
Yeah.
our
Yeah,
site.
had a really fun time doing that. It's a song basically about I was feeling as though maybe I was conforming to some social media trends that weren't genuine to my personality. And I wrote this song as I was kind of thinking about how, people on social media impacted on how I was trying to dress, or, how I was acting at parties. And even if I was in the relationship I was in at the time, was it because I wanted to be, or was it because it looked good? I don't know. So I was freaking out about all of this, and out came this song. This is called Too Many Love Songs.
Too much pop on the radio and the TV stations. Take the new songs and shut them out. We were dialed in to stupid high expectations. Everyday life and everyday love. When I called into question lengths we go to fit in, I couldn't see the end. I had written a letter, balance for my boyfriend, and picked up my pen. I've written too many love songs in the face of my fears since I've been with you. Why do I feel like a winner in someone else's shoes? I've written too many love songs. I wish they were true. There was pop on the patio, and there was a case of beer, and we keep on pushing that envelope. And I know it's irresponsible to drink for attention. It's either lose out or lose myself. And I counted the coasters, the kisses to my collar, feeling angry and confused. How I want not to want to. I hate the mainstream media. I realize that I've been used, and I've written too many love songs in the face of my fears since I've been with you. Why do I feel like a winner in someone else's shoes? I've written too many love songs. I wish they were true.
And that was Too Many Love Songs off the latest EP, Burgundy by Alex Whorms.
So
Fantastic.
let's talk about the intro, because the intro is like only 8 bars. So did you reduce that from what it was, or?
That intro I didn't. No, that specific one was always that length. What I did reduce was the length of the first verse, the length of time it took to get to the chorus.
And you
Right.
took
Because
out the
it
drum
sound-
solo, too.
Because it
right?
sounds to me like there's 2 verses off the top, like Too Much Pop
Yeah.
on the Radio, and then when I called into question, isn't that the start of the second verse?
Oh, maybe I. Oh, hold on. Songwriting police here.
Like, wait, was it longer than this before you got to the
It
chorus?
was.
Before? It was.
It was,
So you,
yeah.
you really had
So-
double that.
I think this part is more like
A pre-chorus, yeah.
So that's a pre-chorus there. So what it was, initially it was verse, pre-chorus,
Chorus,
verse, pre-chorus.
Oh, cool.
damn. Okay.
That is
Right.
that is a cool, I have to admit, that is a cool structure, though.
Yeah. Oh, I think so too. As I was saying, it was more of we were listening. This change happened, way later than it should have. We had a final mix. We were ready to master it and embed everything. And I'm listening to it and going like, Mark, it was just like I was so excited to get to the chorus, and it was taking too long.
Yeah.
And I normally wouldn't feel that way, but I think I did because I didn't feel that. I think I was taking too long to say a very concise thing, right? And I, just beating around the bush. And so in this case, I am much happier with it shorter.
It's the payoff for the
Yeah.
verses, so it
Yeah,
really...
yeah, it totally
Yeah.
works.
Let's talk about your piano. You said that you
Sure.
changed the piano approach.
Yeah. So I tend to. I'm a classically trained pianist, and I love my Beethoven, my Chopin, and all things that have lots of stuff going on. I wrote this song before I had a band, and before it was actually written before my first EP too. So it's been there. Basically, it just used to be very, very a lot of piano, right? And I just found that when I started putting other instruments on it, so it was very right. Too much pop on the radio and the TV stations, and there was all this I don't play it like this anymore, so I don't even remember any of the flourishes really, but there were parts that went like da 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 da, and all this little
Extra little
fills,
bits and-
right?
Yeah.
Which I don't hate them.
And if you ever do solo piano and vocal,
Exactly.
it can be appropriate, right?
Exactly, right? And I just found that I wanted this to be a guitar song. And what we ended up doing, this was actually Amy King, the recording engineer's suggestion. We were doing an overdub day, and she said, why don't you do there's a term for this, what I actually ended up doing, which is, basically the same chord the whole way through. I'm just changing
that
the middle
pedaling?
voice. It was continental something.
Okay.
The first, I can't remember what the
Is that where
noun.
you're keeping the top note the same the whole time? Is that the
Basically,
idea?
it's just like it's a term. I'm embarrassed that I can't remember what
Maybe
it is
one
because
of
it would
our
be great
listeners
to
can
tell you.
let us know.
Listeners out there, if you know what the blank is, it's continental something for
No, but
when you
can
play the
just
same thing.
describe what it is in
So,
terms of.
What it is, it's basically a repeated either it doesn't have to be one chord, which it is in this song, but it's basically like an instrument part that just gets repeated for the whole song.
It's like a pulse.
Yeah. So I'm doing this exact pattern basically throughout the whole song. And there was one overdub take where we had all of these tracks and I just had the headphones on and I just had to try to not get bored and be as precise as possible and just play that exactly for the whole. And at the time the song was longer, so it was like 4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, and yeah, so that, and
Well, because you're right, because the other instruments are doing other things
things.
and maintaining it. I mean, because
Yeah.
it's true. If you go back to like the stems of like Beatles songs or old Motown stuffs and everything, the individual parts, they're extraordinarily simple.
right.
Yeah.
There's no flourishes, no complicated stuff. But when it all gets arranged together, that's when you get the richness.
Exactly.
The thing that I found out that I was taught when my band was picked up by a producer is that he was saying all you guys are playing like
Way
5 times too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just going, what? How could be? And then you realize we played just the skeleton, and then we went all the way up. We were trying to get play as little as we can because you get addicted to that. Going, wow, you have all this space around it.
Yeah.
So it's overplaying is a really easy thing to do for a musician because. Especially if you're on stage, you're just standing there. You feel like you got to do something, right?
Yeah, you got to earn your time up there.
I want to talk a couple of things about what I really like about this song. I mean, the melodies are interesting, the lyrics are interesting. You're exploring the issue in a pretty cool way. But the end of the chorus the first time I heard it, just floored me. I've written too many love songs. I wish they were true. Like the way you cap off the chorus, it's kind of heartbreaking and sad, but it's also uplifting, and it's also like to me it's just like the perfect end to the chorus because it kind of twists the idea a little bit, right at the end, which is really quite cool. And of course, there's the modulation at the end. Which,
yes,
which
let's
was
talk about the modulation.
Well, here's the cool thing about the modulation. The modulation takes place in the middle of or towards the end of the guitar solo. Usually, people put the modulation at the top of the last chorus.
Oh, yeah.
Or the repeat of a chorus.
Or a repeat of a chorus,
yeah.
but you threw it in at the mid, or like two-thirds of the way through the guitar solo. And the guitar solo is what carries us through the modulation.
It was so cool.
Very
What is the
inventive.
modulation?
It goes from E flat major to F.
Ah, so just
It's
a
tone
tone.
up.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all of those
Yeah,
nice
cool.
words about my song. Thank you.
So, the simplifying of the piano, was that something that the producer worked with you or on? Or
Yeah,
was
well,
it,
it was a suggestion. So we kind of took the approach of let's throw a bunch. So as I mentioned, we did the instruments at one studio, and I was going to take the tracks away and go to Mark Lalama for mixing. So our kind of mentality was let's throw a bunch of overdubs on there that may or may not work. You may or may not like. Just have a bunch of possibilities. So my pre-production on this song was a disaster, right? And we were just like, yeah, let's throw that on there. And Amy, producer number one, heard that in it, so we put it on. And what we ended up doing was using that instead of my kind of foundational piano part, and just kind of taking it out, bringing it back in, and it's kind of like a glue. I guess was the purpose of that. But yeah, it wasn't my idea, but we ended up keeping it. And now, I really like it because this is the song. Like when my band plays it. No left hand for me, so I can turn sideways. I can dance. It's like one of my favorite things to perform. We're going to be playing it live on TV in a little bit. I'm really excited.
While we were listening to the recording, you talked about the guitar solo, because when you're talking about the other piano part, I'm like, well, why didn't you just have a piano solo in the middle? But you had just superstar guitarists in your session. So
Let's hold this thought. We'll come back and find out more because I still want to know about your songwriting process.
Right.
We need some sort of break here.
Yeah.
For those of you just joining us, you're listening to Song Talk Radio. We're streaming on songtalk.ca, and tonight we're talking to singer-songwriter Alex Whorms. Don't forget, we love to hear from you even during the show. Feel free to interrupt. So share your thoughts and questions with us at Song Talk Radio on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or send an email to feedback@songtalk.ca. We'll share your thoughts and answer your questions here on the show. And coming up on Song Talk Radio next week, October 1st, we're talking to Steve Coven with his Steve Coven Jazz Trio. It's instrumental jazz stuff, piano, bass, and drums.
Very cool.
Very cool stuff. They've been all over the world doing shows and stuff. And if you're in the Toronto area, please join us at our next Song Talk meetup. It's on Thursday, October 24th from 7 to 10 p.m. at the Transact Club. It's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend the meetup. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you.
Hold on.
So,
Before you do that,
wait, no. Do you have any news?
I have a quickie, sort of resource bit. So
say the interrogation.
So my wife actually texted me from work today, and she pointed out this this book that's available on Amazon, the Kindle edition, anywhere the digital edition. It's called An Anatomy of a Song by Mark Myers. And it's available. The Kindle edition is available for $1.99 right now.
Anatomy of a song?
Anatomy of a Song. And I read
Which
the first
song is it an anatomy of?
It's anatomy of a lot of songs.
Oh, okay.
I read sort of the first half of the first chapter, and what he's done is he's gone through like sort of started like post-war R&B stuff and taken it through to, he says cutoff date is 1991 because in his mind he's basically going through a bunch of songs that he believes to be the most influential in terms of music history.
The foundational
Sounds
ones.
fascinating.
Yeah, sort of foundational, and his cutoff was 1991 because to him you need 25 years generation, you need a single generation about 25 years to say that yes, this song
right.
actually
to
has
have the perspective.
lasting impact. So he's left us with REM 1991,
Right.
And yeah, it seems like an interesting book, and for a couple bucks on Amazon for the digital edition,
How much is it?
$1.99 for the Kindle.
$1.99.
Is that Canadian?
That's Canadian.
Oh,
Amazon.ca.
man. What a deal.
Check it out.
Cheap at twice the price.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Back to
Okay,
Alex's
so
song.
back. So tell us about your songwriting process. How do you write your songs? Do you start with the lyrics? Do you start with the melody? How does it come together?
It kind of, for me, usually it happens at the same time. Usually my brain, something will happen and a hook will enter my mind. And hopefully I'm able to drop whatever I'm doing whenever that happens, and I run over to my piano usually, and I just kind of riff it out. Usually I'll
Is
the
that,
hook
is that hook with a lyric sometimes, or sometimes not, or
usually with a
just-
lyric.
Usually with a
and
lyric. Okay.
actually, no, always with a lyric.
Always with a lyric.
Always with a lyric. Whether that ends up being the final lyric or not. Sometimes
Okay,
it
'cause it
gets
could be a
changed
So it could be a
later.
placeholder
Yeah.
lyric.
Placeholder.
Just
Exactly,
So you get
yeah.
the...
So I will do that once I have, and I always record myself with a cell phone or a camera or something because I will forget. Once I have a reliable reference for that hook and what it's supposed to sound like, then I usually continue recording, and I'll just improvise and kind of do whatever, like, play whatever I feel I should play, sing whatever I feel maybe I should sing, and keep doing that until it eventually kind of amalgamates into some kind of basic structure, basic melody, basic lyrical content. And at that point, which sometimes takes an hour or two, I grab all my videos, I start writing stuff down, and then I go. And I go and I edit the lyrics, and then after hopefully a couple of days, in some case a couple of years, I'll have a song.
So anywhere between a couple of days, a couple of years.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like-
because
like that.
sometimes you work, like, some songs I've had some days where I've written 3 songs in a day and only had to change them like in small ways after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've had some songs where I've had to put them down and I've come back to them a year or two later, because I store all of these memos on my phone. I've probably got, over all the years, probably close to 10,000 little voice clips. And so on a day where I don't have a new idea, I can kind of go back and take an old one and kind of approach it from an editing standpoint.
Right. And do you have polls that you like kind of, I'll go this far, this direction, this far, this direction? Do you go, oh, that's a little too country, or that's a little too... like musical, like theater musical, or like, do you have sort of boundaries when you're writing at this point?
That's not something I ever really think about. So when I write so far, the songs that I end up performing are ones that are usually inspired by either something that happened to me or some kind of thought or emotion I've had. And it's not really, I don't think in genres when I'm writing. Not that I've ever kind of intuitively created a country song or anything like that. Mm-hmm. That doesn't seem to be what my brain does. But it's all about, does this music kind of communicate what I am feeling about whatever I'm singing about? Mm-hmm. For example, Too Many Love Songs, which we heard earlier, was inspired. I first started thinking about that song idea at a party. Mm-hmm. So hence it's kind of like, rocky sounding. Even in the video it said at a party, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted, like, the mood of the song is kind of like, yeah, I'm super cool. And the meaning of the song is kind of like ironic. It's like I'm acting cool, but I don't feel cool at all. But that it's not, and it that song is kind of, I would classify that as indie rock, where some of the other songs later on in the EP are definitely orchestral pop, right? So it's not. I don't put genre boundaries. I just kind of try to dive into my content and represent that as effectively as possible with what I'm doing.
And
Are
that
you
was-
writing
said-
every day?
Most days, yeah. The days that I don't write, it's not because I choose not to. It's because there's, like, for example, I got on the train and I came to talk to you guys or something, right? So
Okay.
if I don't write, it's...
We appreciate
yeah.
the sacrifice.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. And, like, the thing is, some days I just don't feel inspired to write. And
When you're starting, do you always get to that point where you've got the skeleton of a song and then you can revisit it, or do you ever, like, this happens to me sometimes, like I'll come up with, at most like the lyric for the chorus, and then it'll sit for months
Yeah.
or something when I don't touch it again, or do you always get to that point where you have a skeleton? You
I
sort of force
push
yourself there?
myself to get to
to
that
get to
point
that
every
point,
time.
yeah.
Obviously, because life is busy sometimes, I have to go to work or something and I can't finish it. And, but I do my best, if I don't have something else where I absolutely need to get it to a point where I'm like, okay, the verse is going to sound roughly like this. The pre-chorus is going to, or I have a rough structure in mind. I have piano hooks in mind. I have so it's much easier for me to fill in a skeleton, however rough it is later,
Oh, of course,
than
yeah,
it
yeah.
is to revisit a chorus and write a verse to it, because I really kind of get into the zone. Like, I can tell you exactly what was happening to me or what I was thinking about if it wasn't something that actually happened to me, exactly how I was feeling or thinking at that moment for each of my songs. But if I allow myself to go out and do something else and then come back, I'm not in that
that's what I was
state
going to say.
anymore,
Your
right?
state
You
of
may
mind
lose
and
the
your
magic.
feeling has
Exactly.
to be, you're going to be in that zone. And we've said this on the show before, is give yourself permission to do a draft, whether it's a bad draft or a good draft, but at least get to a certain point where, like you say, a skeleton of a
Exactly.
song, and then you get the emotion out, you get the initial feeling, and yes, you have to go back and edit
Yeah.
afterwards, and sometimes you get it a little, sometimes you get it a lot, but at least you got something down.
Exactly. And I mean, as I've said, melodies even change, lyrics change, structure
Yeah,
gets,
anything.
condensed or extended, right? But I just find it's easier to kind of go from something that already exists and just to, improve it, polish it, rather than kind of going to, okay, well, I've got like a leg, so now like I've got to draw like a body and an arm and what, it's
yeah.
just
Better to have the whole shape and
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So
that's
all
how I
writing
go.
is rewriting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then they say that's too in terms of collaboration. Like, there's like the brainstorming session, and then there's like the creation section, and then everyone puts on their editing hats, and now we're going to go back and revise. And then,
Right,
especially if you're collaborating and everyone's got to be sort of thinking on the same wavelength, then and certainly it's a lot. You're right. It's a lot easier to go back to something that's at least somewhat done.
Yeah.
and
Do you
edit from there.
did you mention that you arrange your own strings?
I do.
Now, is that
yeah.
from the music cognition?
No, I learned to arrange strings from my studies through the Royal Conservatory. So I've got all my theory and my harmony and history exams, and I kind of went back and consulted all of that knowledge when I was doing my strings. My program at McMaster was basically a split between science courses and music courses. So I took a lot
Cool.
of performance type courses at school. And then I went and I did research at a facility called the Live Lab, where I brought singers into this theater, and I studied singers as they were performing. So it was more of a
Cool.
Like from a neuroscience point of view, or something like that?
Physiology?
from a physiology point of view. So
okay.
what I did was I had them come into, so this is a lab, but it's a performance space as well as a lab, and it's equipped to, you can put on concerts in there, and you can measure heart rate, skin temperature, brain activity, all these different
Sweat.
things. Yeah, you can measure the audience and you can measure the
Right.
performers.
Okay.
Cool.
And so it's pretty cool. And it has a really, I can't remember the name of it anymore, but a sound system that can change the acoustics, change the way the sound travels. So I could say, all right, I'm going to make it sound like
okay.
a cathedral today. And, there are room mics all around that can influence how you think you're hearing sound. You can turn it into a broom closet. You can make it totally dead. So what I was doing was bringing singers in, and I had created these, we had a Yamaha disclavier in there. I had created MIDI tracks to accompany the singers, so they were all singing the same thing to the same accompaniment, removing variables and whatnot. And we were just looking at them. We were measuring, all sorts of physiological things and seeing if any of those physiological measurements changed significantly in different acoustic environments. So it was the effect of.
And did they?
Actually, during my time. We did not actually find anything significant. However, I know they continued the project with other students afterwards, so there may be new results. I don't know, but it was a really fun project to run because
That's so cool.
I like
That is
arranging
really
things,
cool.
right? So I did a keyboard arrangement there, and I that's the same kind of skill set I guess I used for making my own string scores, for my songs. I really like doing that stuff, and I liked gathering the data. Analyzing the data, not so much. Not my thing.
Let's do another experiment
Yeah.
now. Everyone at home, see how you feel after you listen to another song from Burgundy. And this song would be what?
I think this one is Birds.
This is
yeah.
This is the instrumental then.
This one. So the track called Burgundy is the instrumental, but that's actually, but it's an extension of Birds. Basically, it's the long postlude, and I decided to turn it into its own song because I was going on and on and on with my strings. But Birds, I actually wrote about a week before the release of my first EP. And I was just starting to kind of understand and comprehend that, oh, geez, I'm going to try to be a musician now. And that's exciting and scary. It's lonely sometimes. And then this song kind of came from those kinds of feelings. And that's Birds.
Okay, let's
Here
take
it
a
is.
listen.
Sweet little bird, singing your song, never be silent. Showing your heart, knowing the truth. Does anyone buy it? And day after day, never faced or even acknowledged. If I go away, far, far away, would anyone notice? Seeing the world, spreading the word, the wisest reporter. No one understands tired ears denying the problem. He's flying away, far, far away. He gave up his permit. Leaves a quiet place, empty and gray. Can anyone hear it? Songs to write, tales to tell.
was Birds.
Birds by Alex Whorms. Lovely.
That was great. I was just saying to you, it's interesting, very kind of old-sounding music, but with very modern, kind of direct, emotional lyrics. It's quite an interesting combination.
Thank you.
You use the word acknowledged, which is a hard word to put into a song. It's like, because it's an awkward word actually to sing. It's
I never noticed it. It just kind of came, it came out.
Don't have to hit that D on the end necessarily.
Yeah,
That's true.
acknowledged.
So-
no.
Yeah, so at the end, is there like sort of a minor variation of the intro sort of chords?
Yeah, so
Like the song, there's one chord progression that underpins the whole thing
Yes.
until that outro, I think.
exactly. Yeah. So what happens is the whole thing it's just A minor, G, and then D major. And then what happens at that change, you get C,
Right.
G. Come back to the. So it's it goes from, instead of A minor, you've got the relative major C in
yeah.
place of that, and that's meant to kind of sound like a little bit of a glimmer of hope,
Yeah,
because
it brightens it a little
yeah.
bit, right?
So, because in the song, so it kind of goes on about, I'm imagining a bird on a telephone wire, and singing and singing and singing, and not being heard or noticed by anybody. And then when you get to that part, it's kind of like thinking about flying away and migrating and going somewhere else, and the words are, well, I've got songs to write, is what the lyrics say, and it's kind of refocusing on the purpose and the the drive and the motivation to create more stuff, and kind of using that as a justification for, all right, I'm out of here, I'm going to go somewhere else and try again. That was kind of where that came from in my imagination.
Yeah, so there is like, because you have your main chordal form through the whole thing. Then there's a part where does it go into a minor change
It goes
there?
from the minor to the major.
Then back to a major?
And so it starts in minor, and then it goes in major. Let me figure this out
That's
here.
most of the song. That's,
Oh, and then the part you're talking about is this. I think is a little bit more of a change. So it goes from mostly minor to the appearance of one more major sounding chord, and then it brightens even again, adding an F major chord into the progression there. Does that answer your question? I feel like I'm not quite getting it.
I think so, yeah.
where does that's towards the end as well, right?
This is the end. So this part where you've got that left hand arpeggiated thing happening, and that's the end. So I'm done singing at that part. I'm just imagining flying away into the sky, and then the strings kind of take over, and we've got like all these dull choral sounding vocal parts in there that I love so much. Classical me is just I just want to close my eyes and fly away. And it's kind of and then it goes back to minor again at the end. Actually,
Yes.
so the minor kind of returns, and then you have this thing, right? So it's kind of like, people say a lot, oh yeah, your songs are so authentic, so authentic, and like I think of it, well, it's kind of like, okay, sad, uncertain, but here's a bit of the sun, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can get kind of misty sometimes in my explanations of why I write music the way I do, but that's kind of how I feel it or imagine
talking
it
about
or perceive it.
You're talking about the colors and the palette choice, right? So you want a little bit of contrast, basically, right? So if you're going sad, you want a little glimmer of hope, and then come back to something that sounds sad, and you always it's tension and release.
Yes.
Right, which you work with intuitively, and most of us work with intuitively, but because if you don't want to be doing the same the entire song, because then you get a bit of a drone.
There you go. I was intuitively adding contrast. That's what I was doing.
Nice intuition there.
Thank you.
So the journey between your first EP and the second, there seemed to be a couple of changes aside from the production, but maybe it's just, you read into it from the production. but lyrically, what you were singing about seemed a little different. It just seemed to be more focused, or, well, I thought of it when you said authentic. It seemed to be a little bit more authentic or coming straight from you. Was there any change in your writing or your approach from one of your EP to the second?
I don't know if there was a change in writing, but there was definitely a change in attitude, which probably translated, right? Alluded to this a little bit already. Like first time around trying this, it was, I'm trying this. And then second time it was, I'm doing this.
Oh, that's a big change then.
So a lot of the song ideas, and there was also definitely a big change in just how I was performing vocally. So the vocal delivery is a lot different. If you listen to my first EP, I'm really singing. I'm singing, not necessarily emoting anything. And when we recorded the vocals in a different studio with a different producer, that was Mark Lalama, and he really was on me about this, right? Sunset, the first track, is like a really intense heartbreak song, and he's like, I don't hear the heartbreak, girl, By the end of that session, I was back in tears, and this was over something that I had long been over, and so those things kind of changed, my approach, my attitude towards it. But writing style, I still kind of do the same. I might have different ideas about things than I did, when I was younger, and as I get older. I notice that my songs are less dramatic often.
In your first EP, were the melodies did they stretch higher? Did they go to places where on this one your voice isn't quite reaching? Or
I would say yes,
because this EP does have a little bit of that haunted quality. I mean, it's not haunting, but it's got a little bit of that.
Definitely.
A little bit of that. This EP is actually interesting in that it kind of starts off kind of poppy, and then it gets a little more orchestral and a little bit darker and a little bit more moody as you progress.
Yeah.
But I did notice that about the melodies, is that you're not I've seen you perform live, and I'm certain that you can hit those big money notes if you wanted to, but you're choosing not to.
Yeah, that definitely did happen. First EP, I think there are bigger melodies in there, as compared to the second one. That wasn't a deliberate choice, really. It just kind of happened. Yeah. And that's something that I'm striving to use more of as I go on. As I'm still training my voice, and I'm learning that I can do that. I don't need to stay down here. And we've transposed a lot of my older songs into higher keys.
Oh, really?
So since we recorded them, so it's more to do with as I develop, right? And I definitely, it is a goal of mine to hit the high notes a little more often. Stay tuned for the unreleased to come.
And I think I hear the band.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any shows coming up where people can see you hit those high notes live in person?
Absolutely. This Friday, September 27th, we're playing Gillard Guitars in Hamilton.
All right.
Full band show. Tickets you can find at alexwhorms.com or any of my social media, Facebook, Instagram, what have you. Saturday, September 28th, we're playing at the Atria, the Diesel Room in Oshawa. Same deal. Find all that information online. Later in November, look out for Kingston, Montreal, Ottawa, and who knows where else.
Toronto dates?
Toronto, November 27th. The Painted Lady Songwriters in the Round. I will be there.
Painted Lady. Lovely
good.
venue.
I'll be there.
Great
Yeah.
venue.
Great venue.
Well, thank you, and good luck with all those. Thank you for coming in. That's all the time we have tonight on Song Talk Radio, so special thanks to Alex Whorms.
Thank you so much.
That's lovely. And so send us your impressions on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Song Talk Radio. Send us an email at feedback@songtalkradio.ca, and be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes, and stop by the site at songtalk.ca. You can find links to all the products, books, and web services that we mentioned on the show at our resources pages at songtalk.ca. And if you're in Toronto, please join us for the next Song Talk meetup on Thursday, October 24th from 7 to 10 p.m. at the Transact Club. It's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend the meetup. Actually, we pass the jug around. So it's good that you contribute because the lovely people at the Transac are helping us out.
Yes.
So stop by the Transac for the link to that meetup. Thank you to Micah for pressing all
Micah.
those
Thank you,
buttons.
Woo-woo.
And thank you, devoted listeners, very much. And as for us, Phil, where can we hear more about you? You got a
Follow me
social
at
media?
the Phil Emery on Twitter.
And Neil.
NeilModi.com.
And Micah?
At Jimmy Micah on Instagram.
All right. And I have no desire to be followed right now, so that's it.
Back to
Stop
not
by
being
the
followed.
site at songtalk.ca and have a great evening.
Keep
Good
on
night.
writing.
Good night.
40 seconds.